Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. It's a pleasure to be speaking alongside the other panel members. As you just mentioned, I'm part of ASPI's International Cyber Policy Centre. ASPI has had a large disinformation and information operations team for quite some time now, but I joined ASPI at the start of this year to lead a new project that looked at Chinese influence in the Pacific Island countries in particular, and with a focus on the online information environment. So just a few weeks ago, we published our first major report, which detailed how the CCP is influencing the Solomon Islands online information environment. And what we found in that is that the CCP is attempting to influence public discourse in the Solomon Islands through coordinated information operations that spread false narratives and suppress information contradictory to the party's message. In November of last year, there was anti-Chinese riots that broke out in Honiara. And during that time, the CCP used its media and disinformation capabilities to shape public perception of Solomon Islands security issues and foreign partners. These messages were in alignment with the CCP's regional objectives, and they had a strong focus on undermining the Solomon Islands' existing partnerships, particularly with Australia and the US. In the immediate aftermath of these riots, the CCP was seeking to blame Australia, the US, and in some cases Taiwan for instigating the unrest. And in the weeks that followed, officials were active in pushing a narrative that foreign forces with ulterior motives were aiming to smear the relationship between China and Solomon Islands. Earlier this year, there was a security agreement between China and Solomon Islands that was leaked to the public. And around that same time, the CCP started to push a narrative that Australia and the US were interfering in Solomon's affairs, were colonialist, threatening, and bullying, and had no genuine interest in supporting the country's development. This narrative wasn't something that the CCP necessarily created themselves. It may be something that Pacific Islanders have felt for some time, but they were the only ones really pushing this narrative at that time, and they sought to use it to distract the population from what was initially being discussed, their concerns around the security agreement, and push the focus away from that issue towards Australia and the US. And what we found is that they were quite successful in doing this. Some of the channels of information that were being used by the CCP to push these messages are quite routine diplomatic engagement. But there's a coordinated effort underneath that to amplify the messages of particular individuals and pro-CCP content across a broad spectrum, including party-state media, official-led publications and statements in local media, and on social media, particularly using party-state Facebook groups. There's also a growing body of evidence in the Pacific to suggest that CCP officials are attempting to suppress information that doesn't align with the party's message and the narrative across the Pacific by messaging and coercing local journalists to publish certain content over another and make sure that anything that doesn't align with the CCP's overall message doesn't get out. This is really just the beginning of our work in this area. We hope to expand beyond just the Solomon Islands and look at narratives across the Pacific Island countries on a range of issues, and we'll be publishing more on that in the coming months. But what we're really trying to do is establish this baseline. People talk about Chinese influence in the Pacific growing, but we're trying to establish a kind of a recording where we can say, okay, now we see it increasing to this level, and this is the impact that it's having on population sentiment, on how the public feels about these issues, and whether or not it's leading to things like increased aggression or riots in the streets. So I'll leave it there and yeah, happy to answer any more questions on that. Thank you.